What happens when a beloved Broadway legend walks onto a daytime talk show expecting a light, funny conversation, and instead finds himself pushed into a tense, uncomfortable debate he clearly didn't sign up for? Make sure to subscribe to Final Take Files, and like and comment for more talk show coverage. So Nathan, it's so good to have you here, the host says with a wide smile, leaning slightly forward across the table. I mean, truly, you've done everything: stage, film, television. But people right now are really talking about your recent comments in that interview. Nathan Lane lets out a small laugh, polite but tight. Oh, that's always a dangerous sentence, he says, adjusting slightly in his seat. The audience chuckles lightly. No, nothing bad, another co-host jumps in quickly, trying to soften it. We just thought it was interesting. You mentioned that comedy today feels restricted. Nathan nods, but he's cautious. Well, I said it feels different. I think that's fair. Everything evolves. Comedy evolves. But yes, I think sometimes people are a little afraid. Afraid of what? The first host presses. Afraid of saying the wrong thing, Nathan replies, keeping his tone even. Afraid of being misunderstood. And when that happens, it can make performers a little more guarded. There's a brief pause. One of the panelists leans in, clearly ready to challenge him. But isn't that just accountability? She asks. I mean, for a long time, comedians could say things that were hurtful, and now people are just asking for more awareness. Nathan smiles again, but this time it doesn't fully reach his eyes. Of course. Accountability is important. I'm not arguing against that. So what are you arguing? She responds, a little sharper now. The audience makes that low, curious murmur, the kind that signals something might be brewing. I'm not arguing, Nathan says, still calm. I'm just saying there's a balance. Comedy has always been about pushing boundaries a little. Observing human behavior, sometimes exaggerating it. And if you remove all risk, you remove something essential. Another co-host jumps in, trying to mediate. But do you think maybe what's changed is that audiences now have a voice? Like, they can respond instantly. Absolutely, Nathan says. And that's not inherently bad. It just changes the dynamic. The first host nods, but she's not letting it go. But some would say that what you're describing as fear is really just respect for audiences who were ignored before. Nathan shifts slightly again. I don't disagree with respecting audiences. I think that's vital. But I also think performers need room to explore without feeling like one misstep ends their career. There's a louder reaction from the audience now, some clapping, some murmurs. The panelist who challenged him earlier leans back, crossing her arms slightly. But is that really happening? Are people losing their careers over one joke? Or are they facing consequences for patterns of behavior? Nathan exhales softly. Well, sometimes it's patterns. Sometimes it's not. Sometimes it's a moment taken out of context that spirals. But that's always been true in some way, she counters. The difference now is who gets to speak. Sure, Nathan says, nodding. But the speed and intensity now are very different. And I think it creates an environment where people are cautious in a way that affects creativity. There's a brief pause. One of the co-hosts looks between them, sensing the tension building. I think what Nathan's saying, she offers, is that maybe the pendulum swings, right? Like, for years it was one way, and now it's correcting, and maybe we're still figuring out where it settles. Nathan gives her a grateful look. Yes. That's a much more diplomatic way of putting it. The audience laughs. But the first host isn't backing off. But Nathan, you've built a career on being bold, being unapologetic. Are you saying you feel like you can't do that anymore? Nathan pauses. This is the first real hesitation. I wouldn't say I can't, he says slowly. I would say I think more. Maybe that's good. Maybe it's not. I'm still figuring that out myself. That sounds like growth, the panelist says quickly. Or hesitation, Nathan replies, just as quickly. There's a ripple through the audience, some oohs, a few claps. The energy shifts. Do you think younger comedians have it harder? Another host asks, trying to redirect slightly. In some ways, yes, Nathan says. They're coming up in an environment where everything is documented, everything is shared, everything is analyzed instantly. But they also have more platforms than ever, the first host adds. That's true, Nathan agrees. It's a double-edged sword. The panelist leans forward again. But I still feel like what you're describing is discomfort with change. Nathan's smile tightens again. Well, change is always uncomfortable. That's not exactly a controversial statement. The audience reacts, some laughter, some applause. But discomfort doesn't mean it's wrong, she continues. I didn't say it was wrong, Nathan responds, his tone just a touch firmer now. There's a noticeable shift. The conversation is no longer light. One of the co-hosts quickly jumps in again. Okay, let's take a breath, because I think this is actually a really interesting conversation. Absolutely, the first host says, though her tone suggests she's not done. Nathan leans back slightly, crossing one leg over the other. I agree. I just think sometimes these conversations become very black and white. How so? The panelist asks. You're either on one side or the other, Nathan says. You're either out of touch, or too sensitive. And reality is usually somewhere in the middle. The audience claps at that. But when you say that, she presses, it can sound like you're dismissing legitimate concerns. Nathan shakes his head. I'm not dismissing anything. I'm saying nuance is important. There's a brief silence. The tension is now unmistakable. One of the co-hosts smiles nervously. Well, this got serious fast, she says, trying to lighten the mood. The audience laughs, but it's a little strained. Nathan chuckles softly. I didn't mean for it to turn into a debate. But it is a debate, the first host says. Because this is something people care deeply about. Nathan nods. I understand that. And people listening might feel like when someone in your position says, comedy is restricted, it minimizes the progress that's been made, she adds. Nathan's expression changes, just slightly, but noticeably. I don't think acknowledging complexity minimizes anything, he says. And for the first time, there's a faint edge in his voice. The audience picks up on it immediately. Okay, the co-host says quickly, we're going to keep this going, because I feel like we're just getting into it. Nathan gives a small, polite smile, but his posture is different now. Less relaxed. More guarded. The moment has shifted. And it's clear. This conversation isn't going where anyone expected. The co-host glances down at her notes, then back up, trying to steady the tone. So Nathan, you've been in this industry a long time. You've seen different eras. Do you feel like this moment is uniquely tense? Nathan exhales lightly, choosing his words. Tense is a good word. Yes, I think it is. Not just in comedy, in general conversation. The panelist who's been challenging him nods, but stays firm. But for some people, what feels like tension is just long overdue conversations finally happening. Nathan tilts his head. That's fair. But there's a difference between conversation and confrontation. The audience gives a soft reaction. And sometimes, Nathan continues, it feels like people are waiting to catch you saying something wrong instead of actually listening. The first host jumps in. But that comes from years of people not being heard. So now that they can speak, they're going to speak strongly. I understand that, Nathan says. I'm not dismissing that. I'm just saying, if every conversation starts assuming bad intent, it becomes very hard to communicate. The panelist leans forward. But intent isn't everything. Impact matters more. There's applause. Nathan pauses. Of course impact matters. But if we ignore intent completely, we're not having a fair conversation either. Why not? She presses. Because people are human, Nathan replies, a little firmer now. They make mistakes. If there's no room for that, people just stop talking. Mixed reactions from the audience. A co-host tries to mediate. Is there a middle ground? Where impact matters but there's still room to grow. Yes, Nathan says quickly. That's exactly what I'm saying. But the first host shakes her head slightly. I think what people hear is you saying consequences are unfair or new. Nathan's expression tightens. I didn't say that. But it can come across that way. Nathan leans forward slightly now. Then I think people are hearing something I didn't actually say. The audience reacts. Oh. Okay, the co-host says, raising a hand. Let's keep this calm. No, this matters, the panelist says. Words matter. Especially from someone with influence. And I agree, Nathan responds. But listening matters too. And right now, I feel like I'm explaining something nuanced, and it's being simplified. There's a pause. The first host studies him. So you feel misunderstood? Nathan gives a small, tight smile. A little bit, yes. Some claps from the audience. Well, help us understand, she says. Nathan nods. Okay. There's a climate right now where people in creative fields are more cautious. That's not entirely bad. But it can limit spontaneity, which is important in comedy. But spontaneity can be harmful, the panelist cuts in. Anything can be harmful, Nathan replies quickly. That's not unique to comedy. But comedy has been used to punch down, she says. And it's also been used to challenge power, to connect people, Nathan counters. Applause breaks out. The co-host smiles nervously. Okay, we are definitely in it now. Nathan lets out a short laugh. Apparently. The first host leans in again. Do you see how some people might hear your comments and think you're defending comedians who cross the line? Nathan's patience starts to show strain. I'm not defending anyone specific. I'm talking about a general environment. But environments are shaped by behavior, she replies. Yes, Nathan says. And behavior is shaped by both fear and freedom. That line gets a strong reaction. The panelist shakes her head, framing it as fear centers performers more than the audience. Nathan exhales more audibly now. Well, performers are part of the equation. But not the only part. I didn't say they were, Nathan replies, sharper now. There's a brief silence. A co-host tries to redirect. Let's talk about your current project. But the first host cuts in gently. I just want to finish this thought. The audience reacts again. Nathan shifts in his seat, more closed off now. Go ahead. She looks at him directly. Do you think some comedians hide behind free speech to avoid accountability? Nathan pauses, then nods. Yes. Of course. Applause. But that's not what I'm talking about, he adds. Then what are you talking about? The panelist presses. Nathan's jaw tightens slightly. I'm talking about the gray area. Where someone tries something creative, it doesn't land perfectly, and instead of a conversation, it becomes a pile-on. But sometimes that pile-on is people expressing real hurt, she says. And sometimes it's not proportional, Nathan replies, more sharply now. A louder ooh from the audience. The co-host in the middle looks uneasy. Okay, I think we're... But proportionality is subjective, the panelist says. What feels too much to you might feel justified to someone else. Nathan leans back, shaking his head. Right, but if everything is subjective, how do we have any standard? That's the conversation, she says. Nathan lets out a frustrated laugh. Yes, and it feels like we're not actually having it, we're just talking past each other. Mixed reactions from the audience. The first host crosses her legs, serious now. Or maybe we're just disagreeing. Nathan looks at her. That's possible too. There's a pause. The energy is heavy now. Finally, one co-host jumps in more firmly. Okay, we're going to take a quick break. The audience claps, a bit nervously. Nathan gives a polite smile, but the frustration is visible now. As the applause continues and cameras pull back, the hosts exchange quick looks. This isn't the easy interview they expected. And as they cut to commercial, one thing is clear. When they come back, this could either calm down or get a whole lot worse. The show comes back from break, and the energy is noticeably different. The applause is still there, but it feels tighter, more cautious. Everyone can sense the shift. One of the co-hosts smiles, trying to reset the tone. Welcome back. We're here with Nathan Lane, and we were just having a lively conversation. A few audience members laugh awkwardly. Nathan nods slightly. That's one way to put it. The first host jumps right back in. Nathan, before the break, we were talking about this gray area in comedy. I want to stay there. Nathan leans back, more guarded now. Okay. Because for a lot of people, she continues, it's not gray. It's very clear when something crosses a line. The panelist adds, exactly. For some, it's about lived experience, not theory. The audience applauds. Nathan presses his lips together briefly. I understand that. But clarity can depend on perspective. Or it can come from experience, the panelist replies. Nathan nods once. That's true. But if every perspective becomes absolute, there's no room left for discussion. The first host leans forward. Or maybe the discussion is happening, and it's just uncomfortable. Nathan exhales. Discomfort is fine. I'm not afraid of discomfort. His tone is firmer now. I've spent my whole career being uncomfortable on stage, he continues. That's part of it. Applause breaks out. But what I'm talking about, Nathan says, is shutting things down before they can even be understood. The panelist shakes her head. I don't think it's shutting things down. I think it's setting boundaries. Nathan looks at her. And who decides those boundaries? Communities. People affected by it. And they all agree. Nathan asks. She hesitates slightly. Not always. But that doesn't mean the harm isn't real. I didn't say it wasn't, Nathan replies, his voice tightening. But it does mean it's more complicated than people admit. The audience murmurs. One co-host tries to lighten it. This feels like a college debate class, she jokes. A few laughs, but the tension stays. The first host turns back to Nathan. Let me ask you this. Have you personally held back in performances because of this? Nathan pauses. Yes. There's a stronger reaction now. In what way? She asks. Nathan shifts in his seat. There are moments where I think, is this worth it? Not because I think it's wrong, but because I know how it might be taken. The panelist leans in. But isn't that just being thoughtful? Nathan's patience starts slipping. There's a difference between being thoughtful and second-guessing everything to the point where it loses authenticity. Ooh, the audience reacts. And authenticity matters in comedy, Nathan adds. But responsibility matters too, she fires back. Yes, Nathan says quickly. And I've never said it doesn't. But it sounds like you're frustrated with that responsibility, she says. Nathan exhales more sharply now. No. I'm frustrated with the assumption that I'm not already taking responsibility. That lands hard. Some applause, some silence. The co-host in the middle jumps in. Okay, that's an important distinction. But the first host keeps going. When public figures say they feel restricted, it can sound like resistance to accountability. Nathan leans forward now, more direct. Or it can just be an observation about the environment. Those aren't the same thing. The audience reacts again, split. The panelist shakes her head. But words don't exist in a vacuum. I know that, Nathan says, a little sharper. I've been doing this for decades. A brief silence follows. The co-host tries to smooth it over. We respect that. Nathan cuts in, still controlled but clearly irritated. I'm not sure it feels like that right now. The audience reacts loudly. Oh. The first host raises an eyebrow. What do you mean? Nathan leans back, but his expression is firm now. I came here to talk about my work, and we've spent most of this time dissecting one comment in a way that feels one-sided. A ripple goes through the audience. It's not one-sided, the panelist says. It's a conversation. Nathan shakes his head. It doesn't feel like one when every clarification I make gets turned into something else. That's not fair, she replies. Nathan gives a short, frustrated laugh. It's how it feels from this side. The tension spikes again. A co-host raises her hands. Okay, let's bring it down. But the first host presses. No one is trying to misrepresent you. I didn't say you were trying, Nathan says quickly. I said that's what's happening. Another wave from the audience. The panelist crosses her arms. You have to be open to pushback. I am, Nathan replies, firmer now. What I'm not open to is having my point repeatedly reframed. There's a pause. A co-host tries to pivot. Let's maybe shift to your current project. Nathan interrupts, calm but direct. No, it's fine. Let's finish this. That gets a strong reaction. The first host studies him. Are you sure? Nathan nods. Yes. If we're going to have this conversation, it should actually be one. The panelist responds, it is, you just don't like the disagreement. Nathan's expression hardens. That's not true. Then what is it? She asks. Nathan pauses, then answers more bluntly than before. It's the tone, he says. It's the assumption behind the questions. The room goes quieter. What assumption? The first host asks. Nathan looks at her directly. That I'm coming from ignorance instead of experience. A beat. The panelist shakes her head. I don't think that's the assumption. Nathan gives a tight smile. It may not be intentional. But it's there. The audience reacts again, split, tense. The first host leans back slightly, more serious now. Well, clearly people feel strongly about this. Nathan nods, no smile this time. Yes, they do. There's a pause. And now, it's not just a debate anymore. It's personal. When the segment finally wraps, the applause is loud, but uneven. Some people stand, others stay seated, and the energy feels split right down the middle. The hosts thank Nathan quickly, a little more formally than before, and as the cameras pull back, you can see the shift. Less chatter, fewer smiles. Nathan gives a polite nod, but he doesn't linger. Off camera, there's a brief exchange, quiet, tense, and then he walks off. Within minutes, clips start circulating online. Some viewers defend him, saying he was being talked over and misrepresented, while others argue the hosts were holding him accountable. Social media lights up with divided reactions, with people replaying the moment he said it felt one-sided over and over again. Behind the scenes, reports suggest the tone stayed awkward even after filming ended, with producers stepping in to cool things down. By the end of the day, the moment has gone viral, sparking debates across platforms about comedy, accountability, and how these conversations are handled on live TV. And now it's your turn. What do you think really happened here? Was Nathan Lane misunderstood, or did the hosts push a necessary conversation? Share your opinion in the comments and subscribe to Final Take Files for more real talk show stories.